Hi guys, it is me Costasia. Recently I posted this picture right here on my Facebook page which says that the Protestant Reformation, and people were asking me what is the Protestant Reformation and what do I mean about that. So I decided to make this video so that I can explain what is the Protestant Reformation and what do I mean about that. Now, the Protestant Reformation began with Martin Luther. Martin Luther was a Roman Catholic ordained priest. He loved God, and because that, he worked so hard in his life in order to save his soul. Now, during his time, the Roman Catholic believed that no one can have salvation unless you are Roman Catholic or unless you work for them or pay money to them. And this meant the Roman Catholic very rich. Now, if you were poor, it was so hard for you to get salvation because you do not have enough money to pay for the Roman Catholic so that your soul can be saved. They also believed that Pope had power to pardon people's sins, and this is why millions and millions of people worked so hard in order to save their soul, and Martin Luther was one of them. But because he loved God, he read the Bible and he came to understand that salvation does not come because the good work you do for the church or because how much money you pay to the church. He also came to believe that Pope had no power to pardon people's sins. So when Martin Luther came with this idea, millions and millions of people loved the idea. So later on, the Protestant Reformation began. So now if you look from the Protestant Reformation to now, we see millions and millions of churches, and all the churches that are Christianity we see today, all those churches began with Martin Luther. Before the Protestant began, the only church that believed in Jesus was Roman Catholic. Roman Catholic was the only one church that was a Christianity church. So now from the time of the Protestant Reformation, we see that there's millions and millions of churches that are Christianity, and all those churches began with Martin Luther with the Protestant Reformation. That's why now the biggest news we see on TV is that Pope is trying to bring all the churches together so that they can become one church again, just like it was before the Protestant Reformation. So, but remember, the reason Martin Luther started the Protestant Reformation was because he did not believe that Pope has power to pardon people's sins, and also because he believed that that the mercy of God, salvation does not come because how much money you pay for the church. But now we see that Pope is trying to bring all the churches together again, so that all the Protestant, they can become one church, just like it was. They can all become Catholic again, just like it was before. But the Roman Catholic has never changed. Roman Catholic still believed that Pope or the princes have power to pardon people's sins. But the Bible tells us that Jesus is the only one who has power to forgive people, because Jesus is the one who died for our sins. He is the one who came to this earth to save us from our sins. So Jesus is the one who has the power. No one else has power to pardon people's sins, but only Jesus. But here we see that Roman Catholic, even today, they still believe that they have the power to pardon people's sins. And this shows us that they do not believe in Jesus. If we read in 1 John chapter 1 verse 9, it says, if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just and just we forgive our sins and cleanse us from unrighteousness. So here, if we confess our sins to Jesus, he is able to cleanse us from unrighteousness. He is able to forgive our sins. But Roman Catholic believed that they have the power to forgive people's sins. This shows us that they do not believe in Jesus. And there's so many things that shows us that Roman Catholic does not believe in Jesus. So we see that they bow down to the statues. They do so many things against Jesus. So we see that they worship Mary, but even Mary was a human like us. Mary was created by God, but we see that they worship Mary. But the Bible tells us that no one on the earth, no one is righteousness, because they all have sinned and came short in the eye of God. So we see that they bow down to Mary, they bow down to the statues. We see that they do not believe that Jesus has power to forgive people's sins. But now we see that he is bringing back all the churches together so that they can become one again. And this shows us that once we become one church, and once the Roman Catholic, the papacy get power to rule and to rule as king, just like they were before the Protestant Reformation. This means that our right of the way we worship will be taken away from us. So that's we need to watch that so that we can always be with God. If we do not watch and pray, we end up to bow down to the statues, just like the Roman Catholic do. So we need to watch that and be with God. Because here we have seen that Jesus said, if we confess our sins to God, he will be able to forgive us from our sins. We do not need to confess our sins to anyone, but only to Jesus, because he is the one who died for our sins. When we sin, we are hurting Jesus, because we are putting Jesus back to the cross, because he died for our sins, and that's the only person we need to confess our sins to, not to anyone. Thank you so much. May God be with you always. I will see you next time.